Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here to give you Blank Check. So this is a Disney movie that is to try to answer the question, what would you do with $1,000,000 if you were to have somehow through mysterious means obtained said money? Let me know in the comments below what you would go on and spend $1,000,000 on. I think at some point I will go on within this video and answer that question. I don't think that it's going to be a really thoroughly in-depth answer. It's probably going to be very vague, but I'm still going to answer it either way. But so, hopefully your answer is to be very much a possibly unselfish one, but then again, it's your money. You do whatever you freaking want with it. If you want to wipe your butt with a $1 bill, you can go ahead and do so. But let's go on and let's talk about this movie. So, really at some point this movie does kind of become Shopping Spree the movie, or really like Flex the film. But I feel that there is a large audience that at some points do go on to watch people go into a store and simply buy things. Legitimately, there is to be like toy hauls or unboxings or people going on and legitimately like giving out large sums of money and seeing what people are to go on and do with that money and make a whole entire video simply out of that. So, of course, like mr.beast. But anyways, that of course is to probably live very much vicariously through another person. But I think the real thing to just kind of turn around and look at with what I just kind of said there is vicariously, because at some point you do care about how this person is to invest for their life. And good for them to just have somehow miraculously been able to do so. So, we have Preston here. Preston is to be this kid who is to be so tunnel visioned and so focused on this thing called money, money, money. And Preston is to be looking at his family and his brothers and just be like, man, like if only I could just have a job right now, and only if I could just somehow have my parents just giving me this sweet, sweet dollarinos. But I am to not just have some way of having that happen for me this day until the next day is to come along, and Preston is to bump into this guy named Quigley. And when I'm to have immediately heard the name Quigley, I'm thinking of the Tom Selleck Western film where Quigley was to have gone on and been this kind of like this kind of sharpshooting gunslinger of some kind. And like I'm thinking, like, should Tom Selleck be the villain in this movie? Blank check. But like, for all for naught. But so we would have Quigley, who is to go on and give Preston this check that is to not have a specific amount for it, because this guy is to more and more that these people are to kind of just spring out of the woodwork to talk about this whole situation. The more Quigley is kind of pressed to want to give this kid a check stating like, oh yeah, just give this to your father, he'll know what to do. So Preston does not go on and give that check to his father, and is more and more so realizing that he is to possibly want to go on and take this money and somehow insert it into a bank for it to eventually accumulate interest, could be the way that he could start getting money. But then, like, well, like $200 isn't nearly enough to get good enough interest on the bank. So Preston starts going through the notches of zeros and ones and decides to land upon the ultimate retirement fund, which is to be $1 million upon this check. And so Preston is to somehow go through a bank. They give him $1 million because they just have $1 million to just throw to this kid. And Preston is to somehow walk out of this bank with a backpack full of cash and is off the races of figuring out how to just blow all this money on things that I'm just like, man, like, why that? But then again, you would probably have to state, like, well, like, this is to have spent that money, like, via this time that this movie came out. Like, this would probably be logically, like, what a kid would probably do. For me, like, of course, with my age, like, probably would be a wildly different thing. But then again, like, probably the stuff that I would probably spend on, a lot of people would probably look at me and just like, really? Like, that would be the thing you would be spending this on? I'm like, heck yeah. So, this movie is to go on and seemingly have the tagline of, like, well, hey guys, if you liked Home Alone, you'll like Blank Check. And the more and more I am to realize that, like, well, yeah, like, that is possibly uh pretty close to being correct, because Blank Check and Home Alone have a lot of similarities. At some point, there's to be a villainous character that is to try to go on and figure out where this kid is to, of course, to be, so we can track him down and try to get back this money. And by the end of it, there is to be this kind of booby trappish like thing kind of going on with this kid, trying to figure out a way to take down all of these men, to in the end have not only this villainous guy, but then also these feds that are trying to track down who this guy Macintosh is, and who is to really be a person who could be tied into Quigley, because it's very Quigley focused. So for all of the fun that kind of goes into here, we also have to realize that at some point, Preston is to start to realize, like, even though he is to have seemingly all of the money in the world, he's still losing out on things. Like, for all the money that he has, he doesn't legitimately have friends. And by the end of the movie, he's to realize that all he probably really just needs is his family that he had all along. And that his family really does actually, like, care about him. And so it's like, well, that's really nice. That's nice. So my grading of this film is, like, the story is just very thin, because really it's just kind of living vicariously through, like, oh my god, this kid has so much money. What is he gonna do? What is he gonna blow it on? It's all the fun of that, living vicariously through this person. But yeah, and like the fun of how he's to go on and just kind of outsmart everybody. But yeah, so, like, this film is to just be like a good film. I question whether or not it should be higher or lower. Uh, but I still feel that this is a thumbs up movie, even for how, like, it honestly starts, and I really don't like how it starts, because again, the kid is just so money focused, tunnel vision wise, and then also, like, it gives us a character that it's like, man, like, this is a hard thing to sell in the very beginning, And at some point, maybe someone would have probably clicked off at the beginning of this film and not watched the rest of it. Uh, but good film. It was a good film. It was good. I have so much reservation or hesitation about what I'm to legitimately have graded this movie, but I don't know. Like, I watched it all the way through. Like, legitimately, I had gone on to see so many other like toy haul or shopping spree like things, um, to go on and look at a way to just uh, better invest in things or to logically uh, see what this will actually be of more like of a pop culture-ish means and whatever, um, that I am to even be legitimately 100% aware of. But I may know that these things at some point had probably gone on to exist before I was probably even born, but still. But anyways, so yeah, so let's go on and let's talk about what would I have spent that $1 million on, and then we'll get into actual spoilers, because I think it's about that time. So logically, if I had $1 million, uh, what would I spend that money on? Like, I don't know. Like, probably I would be almost kind of forced to say that, like, I feel that I would be fine with a certain number of money that wouldn't have to be $1 million. But then again, like, if I was put in a scenario where I could go on and get $1 million or more, then like legitimately you would try to like amass that kind of money to not only figure out a way to help yourself but also help others at the end of it all, um because not only it would be like trying to come up with a better quality of life overall, and I mean really overall, there's gonna be a lot of things that I would go on and just be like, okay, like let's not live where I live, let's live in another house, because sound and neighbors and whatever. Um, but also ultimately, I would want like a bigger uh, arrangement of place, just so that way I can go on rationally, just be like, okay, like I can now get these kinds of things, or uh, finally just come up with um, going on and finally like I can buy a lot more exercise equipment that I've ever wanted to do, um, and buy better equipment to do YouTube and have a seemingly better uh, quality of things as far as this is concerned. Because even if I had $1 million, I would still go on and legit still do this. Like I would still have it be just my passion project. It probably wouldn't be an everyday thing, but still, like it would be like a thing that I would really want to go on and still do it because it'd just be a labor of love. Uh, but also like I would try to spend that money on figuring out a way to make certain investments to make a legitimate, more like career like thing, um, with also tying in that money. Uh, I would probably also want to give it to charities as well as family, because it's not all about me. But then after stating all that, after all the things that I probably just really at first really need to get, then also there would be a lot of things that I'd be like, I want this finally. I want to collect this now. Um, I want to go on and finally like obtain a lot of things that I made a ton of mistakes on in the past. Just like, man, I should have gotten this first, or I should have gotten this, because it would have been a lot better to have invested in that. But yeah, a lot of it would be blowing a lot of money just on collectible stuff. Because I've been years behind on collecting much of anything, even though I do have things. A lot of this is just very much things that I've had for a very long time. accumulated over a mass number of years of things, and then somehow, luckily, there to be able to things that I'm to be able to use on YouTube videos, one way or the other, via thumbnails or something. But anyways, uh, after that, yeah, let me know what you would spend $1 million on. Like for me, that would be very much vague. In a lot of ways, like I would never think in my life that I would somehow um, get a large sum of money my way, because logically in my brain, like I would never uh, think that uh, stuff like winning the lottery, like that would never happen logically to a person like me. Um, but hey, uh, weirder, wilder, uh, miraculous things have just somehow happened in my life as well. So here's to the life that we all would either lead or hope to lead. Uh, Indeed. So let's go on and let's get into real spoiler territory because I've probably wasted so many of you's time talking about my true choices of $1 million. And if you were to have somehow accumulated $1 million upon the life that you are to, probably through professional athlete means or through YouTube because you were to just be that good at this thing, yeah. Let me know in the comments below. Like what you spent that money on. Oh my god. Uh, yeah, I collected all of these things. I'm a gamer guy, so yeah, I just blew all this money and all this gamer stuff. I see a lot of people have gone on to just kind of blow a huge amount of money on gaming things. Um, Rationally, yeah, like if that's the thing you're into, collect all of it. So let's go into spoiler territory because it's about that time yet again. I'm gonna go on and pause this video after I go on and do my weird hand signal thing, and get out my cast list or whatever I insisted to be logically the thing that I'm going to need to help me figure out what had happened throughout this entire film, whether it is to logically just be whatever is to spew out of my brain, or whatever is to be the rational or sane thing that I'm to just rattle off when we get into this half of just spoilers. So, spoiler time, spoiler time. It's about that time I'm going to spoil this movie. Let's get into it. Alright, spoilers. So, I think the way that this, like, opens, like, okay, like, this is a very odd way to open up a Disney film. Like, it starts off, like, almost like a horror film. Like, what is this guy doing? Like, what is he trying to do? So, we have Quigley fresh out of the prison, fresh out of the orange jumpsuit, is to make his way to this dark and damp location, and is to weld and is to figure out how to uh, grasp this item and kind of move it off to the side to then grab this briefcase that is to have a huge slew of money. And that is where we would naturally have to assume that the $1 million comes into this story. There also is to be another movie with Chris Hemsworth where like a briefcase full of money just kind of flies on top of his car, and so he takes this briefcase of money, spends all of it, and then the villainous guy comes in and is like, well, hey, like you gotta give me all this money back. And so Chris Hemsworth and his wife just starts like figuring out a way to sell everything that they own to get this money back to this guy. And so it's like, man, like that was a very harsh uh, approach of movie, but then again, like I guess it's also to be just very dramatic of a film. So we have Preston, who's going on and looking at his goldfish and is practicing talking to his father about how, like, he should logically in his home get his own room, because it seems oddly enough that his brothers are going on and using up a portion of Preston's room for their own business, for their own hand and foot business. And I'm like, logically, why don't they use their actual rooms for this whole procedure? But like, weirdly enough, like the dad is just like, well, like, son, they're having a career, and so with that, like, they're getting whatever they want, because that's all I give a about, is that they have a career and a job that they're somehow making money for. It doesn't really seem exactly what hand and foot actually is. Like, I think they, in a roundabout way, like, say what they're trying to do, but then again, like, I don't know exactly what the hand and foot thing does. Maybe they just clean people's feet. I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't exactly explain what they're doing. So, so yeah, like I said, Preston ends up spotting his dad, and it's like, well, hey, Dad, like, do you think I can go on and get my own room? And the father's just like, well, no, like your brothers are going on um, both Damien and Ralph are doing this whole business, so like really, like, I'm gonna go on and just kind of give them whatever they want uh to try and like motivate them even more to get this career, to just really uh just rise to greater heights that they can have ever dreamt of. So I think I was gonna try to say something else there, but it just didn't work in my brain. Uh so the dad, Fred, ends up going on to give the two brothers a computer. And it seems that the brothers don't know how to work the computer, but Preston immediately does. So he goes on and is to put in place the like speak and spell or whatever of this computer. And it goes on to state that both Damien and Ralph end up sleeping like face to butt or face to feet or whatever. And the two brothers are like, "Oh my god, that's horrible! What that thing is saying." So, like, they try to figure out a way to just like turn off the computer, and then they unplug it, and then they grab Preston and they punch him and just like, "Hey, don't rub the arm, or you'll be a wussy." So Preston is on his first agenda to want to figure out a way to knock off both Ralph and Damien, to just murder them, it seems, because eventually he'll go on and state that. So Preston has more pressing things going on, and his father, of course, is to remind him that it's like, well, hey, like, uh, you do have Butch's birthday party to go to, and Preston's like, why would I want to go to Butch's birthday party? That guy's a jerk. So, but if anything, Preston is to just kind of go out, and he makes his way to this cliffside fun park. So Preston is to be driven by his father to this park, and so Preston is to go on and ask his dad, it's like, well, hey, do you think I can have some money to spend there? And Fred ends up going, well, yeah, like, here's some money. And he gives him like $6. And so the kid's like, this isn't a lot of money, Dad. So Preston goes to this birthday celebration, and there's to be a big, massive sign that says "Happy Birthday, Butch." And Butch is looking at Preston. It's like, oh, hey, Presto the pesto. So Butch, of course, is to give all kinds of shade to Preston because he's the main character and Butch is just Butch, sadly enough. So Butch then goes on and is to ridicule Preston at certain times when he is to just have on the very uh just kind of sad side of things, go and ride this ostrich upon this merry-go-round like thing, um, or the whatever the carousel. I think carousel is the right word. And Preston gets all of these just kind of kiddie rides or just kind of rides that are just very much focused on this kind of just circular go around instead of going on these roller coaster like rides because they take 7 tokens and he only has 6 of them. So Preston at one point ends up getting splashed with this wave of water while he is holding on to this cotton candy, all sad. Plus, also Butch is to have seemingly accumulated $50 to just slap down and be like, "It's my birthday," and want to turn around and at some point like, "Hey Preston, come with us." No, you won't. You're not coming along. So Preston comes back home and is with his folks at this table. And it seems that his birthday is coming up soon. So Preston, it seems, is talking to his folks about like, "Are we poor?" "No, we're not poor." Like, "Why aren't you just like throwing down that money?" That's not exactly what he said, but man, should he have. Like, man, if we're not poor, then like, why does it feel like we are? So Preston is just talking about money, and so we'd have the mother here, Sandra, who then is to notice that there's to be this envelope full of cash, paper wise, full of cash with it just being a check. And is to have this card that it seems Preston doesn't bother to read. He just chucks it and is like, "Oh my god, there's a check," but then the check has nothing on it. So Fred takes the check, the dad, and he looks at the check and he's like, "Well, like, the last time that you got money was like $10. Like, how about like because of inflation we give you $11?" So Preston's like, "Oh, thanks, great." So yeah, I remember those years when um like eventually you would just be kind of hoping for birthday money, so you can go on and just kind of buy like a one action figure or a one thing that probably would not be enough money out of that $20. So you'd just be like looking at your parents and you'd be like, "Well, could I borrow another $10 to get this?" Or you would probably figure out a way to just want to come up with like more than one item to get out of this $20. So you're looking at your family and just like, help me. But then your family just like, "No, it's like get one or the other." And you're like, "Oh, okay, I think I like this one more." So Preston again is to go on and just be so saddened by the fact that he is to have only a small portion of money. So he is to try to figure out how $11 invested within a bank and collecting interest could how long could that take to have him eventually make $1 million? And the end result is to be that he's going to be dead by the time he sees that $1 million. So Preston, who of course is just utterly just like, well, like, man, like, what am I gonna do? Like, how am I gonna get money? And Fred is going on and telling Preston, it's like, well, hey man, like, lights out. Preston's like, well, hey, uh, hey, like, why can't I go on and just kind of, like, stay up as long as I want to, or just do whatever I want to? It's like, well, hey, my rule's my house. So Preston goes on and is to look at his birthday list, his action list, his objectives, and he's like, okay, after I knock off Damon and Ralph, I'm gonna go and get my own house. Oh yeah, I'm just gonna get my own house. So we now go to this bank. So Quigley here, and going on to meet a dear old friend of his named Biderman, who had gone on to point him out in some court case, him and some woman. So Quigley is to seek utter like dominance over the Binderman character, to just be like, okay, like, well, hey, like, you're gonna go on and you're gonna take this money that I gotten from this briefcase and you're gonna launder this money for me, and by 24 hours later tomorrow, I'm gonna go on and send a guy named Juice out to collect this money. And there, of course, is to have him bring this check with him. So, because Benderman is to give Quigley these checks to just be like, well, hey, in the meantime, for how you can spend this money, here's the checks. So Preston goes to the bank, and he is to notice the bank is to have these pieces of paper with Shay's name and photo upon it, and Preston goes into this bank and is to figure out if he can go on and deposit this money into a bank, and Shay herself is to go on to see Preston, and Shay ends up saying like, well, no, like, you're actually gonna need like a deposit of $200. And Preston's like, $200? Who do you think I kidnapped, Chelsea Quinton or Chelsea Clinton? I want 20 million in 20s. Rush hour. So Preston realizes, like, well, I guess I'm not going to make a deposit anytime soon. So he walks away. And Preston is holding on to this check. And all of a sudden, Butch just comes out of nowhere, steals it from him, and bikes off. To where Preston is now having to bike after him. So during that joyous bike ride of journey of sorts, we'd have Preston, who is to just kind of drop his bike and almost get run over by this car, and the guy coming out of the car is Quigley himself. So Butch is to go on and be like, oh, hey, yeah, I'm going to be an eyewitness for this kid, and all of a sudden there's like people that are starting to come out of the woodwork and just be like, well, hey, is that kid okay? And this and that. And so the more and more that people are starting to line up, the more Quigley is just like, well, hey man, like, I really need to go on and and kind of figure out a way out of this. So Quigley gives Preston this check. It's like, hey man, give this to your father. He'll know what to do with it. Not you, a youngster that is going to probably blow my $1 million on a just number of just useless toys that legitimately would be a lot of fun. So Preston gets this check beyond reobtaining the $11 check that he also had Butch take from him. But so, after this check, we'd have Preston come home to have his parents talk to him, and Preston is to just be so like upset that he's going and just be like, you know what, I want my own money and I want my own home and I want my own this. Like, I was just sick of this. And like his parents are just so close to just like, man, like you're freaking grounded. I'm sick of you, kid. I'm sick of your money woes. Sell your blood to somebody. Sell your kidney. Just sell it on eBay. I'm sure all of that will get a pretty good penny. So Preston goes into his room and is looking at this big fat check that has no money upon it. So he's like, you know what? I'm going to go on and with my computer figure out what kind of money I should be having on this check. So, like at first it's like $200 and he's like, yeah, maybe $1,000. That sounds good, right? Because Preston is to still kind of be upset that that his bike is wrecked, and his parents are just like, well, we'll buy you a bike for your birthday. Preston's like, why would I want a bike for my birthday? There could be so many other things that you could be getting for me for my birthday. That maybe it'd be something I actually wanted. Uh, Let me know in the comments below if you were to have been a person that when you go for holidays, you have people that do really want to, like, bless their hearts, go on and actually give you a gift for certain holidays, but then, like, those gifts are just really not anything you would actually get yourself. And so you're just like, good man, like, I have this thing, but I don't want it, but I can't get rid of it to get the thing that I really want, because it's just not a thing that I could go on and do that. And plus, also, it just feels horrible that you're a person that just doesn't like this person, but you're being honest also. But, hence why, like, a lot of holidays, just you would do your own Christmas, you would do your own birthday, you would do your own holiday, just so you would just know that, like, well, at least I had that one item that I know I wanted. Uh, but anyways, so that makes me feel probably like a horrible person, but like it's also the truth. People people get you things and then you're just like, like I feel obligated to just say that I wanted this even though logically it's just like nowhere near. Um but so Preston looking at this check and is going from 200, 1,000 to $1,000,000, and he prints out this check and is all gleeful that he had somehow masterminded this whole ordeal, with also writing the word check upon the um, the thing so he wouldn't actually give out his name. So Preston then turns around and heads his way to the bank, probably at some points thinking that he's uh, going to get caught, or eventually some people are just gonna be like, man, I don't believe that you're gonna get this kind of money, and why would you? But hey, again, miraculous things have happened in our lives. So we'd have over this counter a woman named Ludowitz, 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 and she's looking at this kid and just being like, all right, what do you want? Like, what are you here for? So the kid ends up handing over the check, and she's just like, like, see, Biterman, like, come on, like I don't have time to deal with this. So Udowitz and Preston go to Biterman. Man, there's a lot of names thrown here. So Biterman is to start talking with Preston, and it's to try to like wave away the woman. Just like, well, hey, like if we're to be busy within the bank, maybe you should be focusing on that. So Bitterman starts, or Bitterman. I'm gonna go with Bitterman. Bitterman starts talking to Preston, and is to talk about the name on the check. She's like, oh, like, you bumped into Quigley, right? And the kid was like, well, actually, he bumped into me. And Butterman's just like, oh, Juice, because that was the name, the code name, which is actually a legitimate name of Quigley, who had gone on to say like, yeah, there's gonna be a guy named Juice coming who's gonna collect this check. So Bitterman is like, oh, Juice, and the kid's like, oh, I'm not thirsty, and Bitterman's like, clever joke. So Bitterman is to take the check, and then he burns the check, and we're thinking, oh, all is lost here. So the guy does hand over the money, and then the kid is like, oh my god, this is working. So fills up the bag of cashola, and then heads on out. Come to find that Juice is to make his way into this bank, and is to go on and do the exact same thing that that Preston had just gone and done. Shown the check, like, oh, were you here for $1,000,000 too? Was like, well, come to find out I am. Wow. So we'd have Juice who is making his way while gawking at all these women's and just being like, yeah, I want me some of that. And just kind of making through these hallways, just gawking at all these women instead of really focusing on the thing that he should have been focusing on, which is to get this $1,000,000 and also consistently look at this kid who has the $1,000,000 within this backpack that he doesn't realize is to legitimately be there. So Juice goes to Biterman, and Biterman is just going on and saying like, well, like the eagle has landed, the uh the juice is worth the squeeze, and whatever. He says all these like weird, like just like weird isms and whatevers and goofy things. And so the juice is like, well, I don't know, like, how the eagle has landed. I don't know how, like, the cart before the race and whatever the heck that guy was saying. But Juice is like, I don't know what you're talking about. Can we talk English here? Can we speak the words of which that we can both understand? And so it's like, well, yeah, like do you know about the kid, right? And so Juice is like, what kid? It's like, oh, so Bitterman Bitterman is just like, oh my god, I gave this kid this $1,000,000 and it wasn't even the right person. Oh my god. So Juice is like, well, hey, I don't care who you gave this money to. Like, we better get this money, or otherwise, like, Quigley's gonna murder the both of us. So we turn around, and so Preston is making his way to this mansion that was to be seemingly close to his house. So he's just like, yeah, I want to give me this massive castle looking thing so I can just be Mario Brothers for the rest of my life and keep Bowser out of my freaking house. So Preston sees this house hunt realty sign, and he takes the sign to get the phone number. And so he ends up using this computer to disguise his voice as he's speaking to this realtor to put a bid on of this house, all while Quigley is doing the exact same thing. So Quigley is looking at these two old folks that are trying to sell this house, and so Quigley is going on and telling this Macintosh guy, it's like, hey man, you're not getting this house. I'm gonna get this house. I have all the money in the world. So Quigley is to be like, okay, like I'll up the ante every time that this guy's to go on and and say whatever price. So Preston goes on to just say like, okay, like 200,000, like thinking that this is gonna be like enough to buy this house. But then all of a sudden, his mother interrupts with talking something about three, and now like Preston is to like over here on the phone that they're at now like 300,000, and so Quigley is to just stop from there. So Preston ends up buying the house. So out of all this, they have to go on and realize like, okay, like what is this guy's name? And that is when Preston disguises himself as Macintosh as he looks at his computer, and it's a Macintosh. Man, what would have it have gone on and been a computer with some other kind of name? Would he have called himself Apple or Mac or any other computer name at some point? So we have Quigley making his way to talk to Juice and Bitterman, and he starts to put the pieces together. He's like, "Oh my god, that kid! Oh my god, why? Why did I do that? Why did I give him that check?" So now Quigley is just like, well, "We gotta find that kid. We gotta figure out where he is. We gotta go into all of these like kind of family or child locations and possibly figure out where we can find this kid." And Quigley is asking like these two men. It's like, well, you saw him, like you should be able to like spot him, right? And also, like Bitterman is to state that there is to be cameras that had also had a photo of this kid. So, like either way, they're gonna possibly go on and find this kid via means of which that uh, will hopefully reveal the ending of this movie. So we have Shay, and Shay, by the way, is an FBI agent. We come to find she knows that Bitterman is dirty, and is to know that she's rolling. She's noticing that Bitterman is rolling with Quigley here. So Shay is calling out to her little brooch or whatever. It's like, well, hey, like Quigley's in the bank. All right, like we got something here. So we turn around and really get to the fun part of the movie. We're getting to the fun part now. I know that this movie's an hour and a half, and I'm going to try as best as I can to still probably just have this probably go way over the hour and a half thing. Probably going to go into too much. But so here's where we get the fun part. Preston ends up going on to buy the house, and then turns around to uh, have this chauffeur show up at this house because he doesn't have a license, Lisa. So this chauffeur is to be a man named Henry, as I'm to now realize what that name is. So Preston shows up, meets Henry, and Henry is like, well, hey, like, I'm waiting for a guy named Macintosh. Like, I'm not going to go on and, like, do anything of having you go anywhere with me because I'm waiting for this Macintosh guy. And so Preston is just like, oh, like, so, uh, like, would you naturally assume that this guy's going to go on and give you a ton of money like I am going to right now to have you do whatever I want? And then Henry's like, oh, yeah, money? Yeah, money. Yeah, I'll answer to money. So Henry goes along and becomes like Preston's like best friend to this whole thing. Like they go on and they go through all of these shops and they have a ton of fun and they're playing with all of these like super soakers and like Nerf weapons. And so Preston goes into the car and he like slaps his backpack and he's like, "Well, yeah, we're gonna have some fun. We're gonna spend." And so he goes into these locations and he's buying all of these like lavish clothes. And I'm just like, well, yeah, that actually is a smart choice because in all honesty, like I myself would like to go on and like obtain a whole brand new wardrobe of things. Because obviously I'm wearing stuff that is uh like way larger than I actually am most of the time. So Preston goes on to have a lot of fun with Henry, and we have Henry who's driving off, and Preston is to have this almost like garbage pail sized ice cream, and I'm like, oh my god, like that is just wild. The just huge amount of ice cream, and also like ice cream is just like he's getting the most unhealthiest thing of ice like ice cream is not healthy, but again, this kid's rich. So he has like all of these things that at some point he's gonna go on and have a YouTube channel, right? Where he does all these unboxings and they're gonna go all through the malls and all of these things to like show all of these toys off and all the things that he purchased. It's gonna be a whole YouTube channel that Preston is gonna do, seemingly behind the scenes of this film. Or maybe years later just be like, hey, like this is Preston and he still has that $1 million. I don't know how it still happened, but he just accumulated. He the feds just kind of took all the money back and Preston somehow got it. Maybe years later after he met back up with Shay. But anyways, so uh so Preston with his very unusual jester sunglasses and all these kinds of things is to have at some point bumped into Shay, who is kind of jogging along because she wants to get in shape, because she wants to get swole, because she has to be an FBI agent. She wants to live up to that bureau, it seems. So, as well as also technically Shay's being a leading lady of this film, so she's got to look all tight and right and you know what I mean? So Preston goes on to like just be driving by and is noticing Shay. It's like, hey Shay, hey, yeah, hey, how's it going? And so Shay talks to Preston. It's like, well, wow, like, where'd you get the limo? And like, you must be coming up with that $200 right about now to be able to deposit that in that in my bank. And Preston's like, oh yeah, like definitely. You're gonna be seeing me soon. So Preston drives off, and so Shay goes to her partner. I don't know quite exactly where this guy fits in the bureau, but guy's name is Riggs. So she goes on to talk to Riggs as if this is Lethal Weapon, and Shay is just like, well, yeah, like yeah, I know this kid from the bank. If anything, he's not Macintosh. So the following day, we have Fred, and he's trying to get out of his house. He's trying to go for this. He's trying to go to this thing called work. And all of a sudden, there's all of these trucks just lined up everywhere that are probably straight up just sponsorship for this entire film. Like we have the Sharper Image, which I don't even know what they do there. Coca-Cola, a number of just like appliances maybe, and just a number, and also we have like the the thing to have like the slide thing. Somebody is manufacturing that to just put and install within this house. I don't even know how this kid got half of this stuff. But hey, like, and this is like pre Amazons and eBays and all of that. Like, how convenient of a life do we have now that we have all this stuff just at our fingertips to be able to just consumer and buy away, as if we're in sync. So Fred is just very upset with all of these trucks just like in the way. Like there's no way he's gonna go on and be able to drive anywhere, it seems. But so Preston, who has to have this massive like headphone thing upon his head, is just kind of figuring out a way to like navigate all of these people and tell them all what to do. And Fred is just like, Preston, what are you doing? And so Preston's like, well, I work for from a guy named Macintosh. Like, who's Macintosh? I've never heard of this guy. So the more Fred is just shouting, the more Preston's like, well, hey, yeah, I'll just let me just kind of deal with you later. I have so many other things going on. So, but Preston ends up adhering to his father, and it's like, okay, like guys, like let's clear a path so somebody else can kind of can make our way through the roads and avenues of this this story adventure and whatever. So we get more montaging of people having fun. Henry is to go on and have uh Henry is to kind of be the starter and the finisher and the whatever of Henry going on and doing this race. This kid legitimately has a car, but he's not even able to drive. So he's doing this race and it's all cool and great. So Shay is noticing a woman coming into her bank, just throwing down a big batch of cash. So Shay is like, what's going on here? And this woman is like, well, yeah, this Macintosh guy, like, he's got a lot of money to throw around. And so Shay's just like, oh, okay. Who is this Macintosh guy I need to really look into and figure out why he has so much cash? So both Quigley and Bitterman are going to these locations, these like water parks and whatever, and they're trying to like feel it out. I think also Juice is there to try to feel it out where this kid could go on and be. So they're just like, it's a needle and haystack kind of thing. Like they're just trying to like luck of the draw. Excuse me, luck of the draw. Hope that this kid is to be at these locales. So Juice is to run off, and he's to tell the other guys like, man, I'm just gonna go on and just have fun and going to these water slides because. So back with Preston going on and playing all these video games and nerfing and super soaking everybody. He has this very unusual like landmine like chair that is just kind of sitting up in the sky. It seems it's pretty freaking awesome. But then again, like I don't know if that's really legitimately comfortable. You'd probably have to ask the actor that. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe he was thinking like, I'm gonna fall to my death. Hopefully somebody like freaking ropes me down. So Henry, with a slew of TVs, is to show that Butch has snuck into the mansion, and so Henry has grasped Butch, is telling Preston's like, well, hey, like this guy had appeared here. He's looking for you. And Preston is just like, nah, like, get rid of him. So we have Preston that goes on to make his way using his slide to have a little watery fun. And he is to get interrupted, out of all things, by Shay. Shay isn't to immediately go on and tell the Preston, like, hey, nice tan lines. No, Shay is all about business. And so Shay is talking to Preston. It's like, well, hey, like, where is this Macintosh guy? I want to meet with him. And if anything, like, I want him to come to this location at this date and time. And so Preston is telling Shay, it's like, all right, like, well, like, I'll give you my $200 to deposit within the bank. But then also, like, I guess, like, we have a date. So Shay and Henry, or Shay and Henry, Preston and Henry are together, and so Preston is trying to go on and figure out like about dating, and so Henry is having this whole like thing about him like to have gone on a date and to have gone to a buffet and it's to be all you can eat, but uh like he's stating that it's like, well, yeah, it's all you can eat, but not all you can eat there, and you can take all the food and kind of put it in like these little baggies that you have like in and all of a sudden after the date you're a guy that has all these things of food in this bag. And this whole story, I'm just like, you know what, this thing is fascinating, but again, going on a little long there, buddy. But then again, like, what am I to say? I'm already at an hour with this movie. So, again, more montaging of both Henry and Preston having fun with going into this boxing like ring and doing sumo. And really, just, this is freaking fun. This is a lot of fun in this film. Just like, but the shopping spree, though, I wish that they would have spent more time on the shopping spree part. I get it that probably is not like ultimately everyone's bag of stuff, but then again, like I could legitimately just watch people just do a shopping spree and like and also do unboxings. It's a lot of fun. Like the mystery of it all of who that person would choose to buy things is just like it's plus also there's a lot of people that actually a lot more accumulation of actual knowledge of things, so to just kind of see them just go through all these places and these locales and just being like, well, yeah, like this is a really popular thing that it seems people really want to go on and invest in, and man, I'm getting the itch to go into that investment also. So we turn around back with Preston and his family, and with it ever being so close to uh, Preston really spending a lot of time with Macintosh, it seems that uh, legitimately Fred is just having some qualms with that. Like, who is this Macintosh guy? We've never gone on and even seen him. And, like, shouldn't we go on and actually see him right now? And Preston is telling his dad, it's like, well, hey, like, if anything, like, Macintosh is just really busy right now because he's going on and he has a date with a woman. And Fred is like, oh, that lucky dog. So everybody's just like, oh, yeah. Like, so Preston goes on and he's leaving and he's like, ah, you losers, ah, you turds, I'm getting out of here. So Preston goes off to this lavish date of seemingly these very small, unusual lobsters. So Preston ends up handing Shay this lavish hearted necklace, and then, like, while they're going on this date, Preston accidentally like kind of trips with his chair and falls backwards, and is to toss every bit of what was to be on the table upon his bate. And so Preston ends up turning to Shay. Is like, "Would you like to grab a little bit of that burger? Would you like some other things than just this? Like, I don't think this fits either one of us. Like, this is like uh, when Michael Keaton was with Vicky Vale in the Batman film, and he was in that very long, stretched out like table, and the girl's like, "Can you pass the salt?" And she asks him have you ever been in this room? And Bruce is just like, "I don't think I ever have. I think I've ever been in this room." So so it seems that Bitterman, Juice, and Quigley are nearby the location of where also both Preston and Shay are going to be here. So after they are to go on and have their meal and just have this little chat, Preston and Shay go on to make it to this. I would call it like geyser, like fountain, like thing, because we just have this like these sprinkler-ish like waters that are just firing up, um, making this kind of wild, uh, kind of organization of uh, of geyserish like sprays of water within this environment. So Preston and Shay are just kind of dancing around all of these things, hoping to not get sprayed in the gooch. So we would then come to find that Biden, Quigley, and Juice are to spot both Shay and Preston and are starting to go on and run to them. But then Preston is to grab Shay, and they both run off into the limo together. And the villainous characters are to be left to just get sprayed with these geysers and get hit in the face. It's like, bah! So we have Preston after going on and just having a heck of a night. So much so that it seems that he's gonna at some point lock lips with this Shay woman. But really, we come to find out that Shay is just like, well, yeah, like, I'm a little bit older than you. Maybe in 5 or 6 or some odd years from now, like maybe we can go on uh, and and rekindle this. But hey, not quite now. So since Preston has realized that his birthday is coming up, he's going back to his my birthday list, and the next thing up is to be having the biggest birthday party that he can possibly have. When he's really starting to run out of money, he's really starting to run out of that quiche. So we'd have Fred, who's very curious about what Preston is going on and doing, kind of just foreshadowing what we're about to just legitimately see here. So Fred is asking his wife, like where's Preston right now? It's like, well, obviously working with Macintosh. Well, where's our sons? Where's Damien and Ralph? It's like, well, they're also working for Macintosh. So we then turn around to see um that Preston is having batting practice, and Ralph, 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 the kid, is going on and kind of poot out all these balls, and Damien is going on and cleaning this car, And every time the other older brothers end up giving Preston lip, it's like, well, hey, like, Macintosh is watching. He's watching. He really is, because he's right then and there watching you. So Preston goes on and then is to be playing some of his VR, some of his Oculus Rift, because that's around the time that that came out, right? No. So Preston is to be met by this party planner, who is to actually have the name uh, Yvonne. Yvonne? I'm going to go with Yvonne. That sounds good. So, Yvonne. Yvonne is to appear and seemingly put out a birthday party that is to not be quoted ahead of time, because I've gone on and seen like so many things that uh a planner would come in and just be like, okay, how much money like do you have to spend? And like, I think I can get within that budget. And they go within that budget, and then they just go, oh, okay, here's what I did. And the person ends up probably crying because they're so upset by the ugly direction of which that this person went into, or the exact opposite. So we then would, of course, be taking far too long to figure out where the heck I even frickin' am at this point of this movie, because I've lost track. But so Preston goes on and is talking to Henry, and Preston is asking Henry, like, well, hey, like, do you want to hang out tonight? And Henry's like, well, yeah, no. Like, I really need to go on and just kind of hang out with some friends. And also, like how much you gonna pay me for we're together? But so Preston is to realize, like, well, yeah, like, all my people are turning against me. Like, Henry doesn't even want to spend time with me. And so all of a sudden, Preston is in his little boxing ring, and he's just like shadow boxing, and he's just like, oh, like, I'm all by my lonesome. So Preston goes to a place where kids are to seemingly do things, and come to find out, Quigley, Bitterman, and Juice are right then and there to try and obtain said Preston. They're at this park. So the three goons are to notice Preston, and they're to take this car and drive crazily into locales uh, of the grass to get to this kid. And so this then forces Preston to accidentally drop his backpack, but then needs to turn around and retrieve it. Um, because Preston at one point ends up getting chased down by Juice, and Preston gets distracted, drops the backpack, has to turn around after losing Juice, and Juice goes back to the car and vomits into the car. So Preston goes upon this stage, and Quigley and the car ends up driving onto the stage and is to get into an accident, which leaves then Preston to get away. So Quigley and his two other goons are to end up finding uh, Butch. And so they squeeze Butch for information as they're dangling him over this building. And so Butch squeals like only a Butch can. So Preston and Henry are looking at the party being organized off in the distance, as if they can't touch anything that actually should legitimately be theirs, aka Preston's. So Yvonne is going on and talking to Preston about how all the stuff that she used to go on and do and organize this. So so the next thing we end up seeing is Butch going on to be dangled off of this building. So Shay ends up going on to meet with Preston and is talking about Macintosh, really wanting some legitimate answers, but Preston is to go on and not really give him much of anything. But so, but also just like it's just more just kind of them talking. I don't really remember exactly what all plays out, but when Preston turns, both his older brother are to say that Shay is just a gold digger, and all that she wants Macintosh for is his money. And she had also gone on and talked about how like she's busy going on and working at the bank. So Preston then turns to Henry. It's like, well, hey, do you know anything about gold diggers? And Henry's like, well, yeah, they're the worst. And he goes on to this whole rant about that. So Preston and Henry make their way to this party and they start thumbing through the food. And at some point, they're talking about, like, well, yeah, like, all this food is okay and all, but like it's not as good as a big, huge, massive bowl of ice cream. So Riggs is going on and talking to Shay. It's like, well, hey, we need to get this Macintosh guy. Like, we need to go on and arrest him here. Uh, for whatever reason, like I don't know why that they just bizarrely think that Macintosh is just the key to all of this, with what they're gonna go on and have with Quigley. So Yvonne ends up handing Preston the big fat like bill for this party. So Preston goes back to go to his computer to assess like how much money he legitimately has left out of his whole entire $1 million. The bill for this whole thing is $1 million. So I'm like, I don't think that the kid is gonna have money for this, but surefire enough, he only has like $332.17. Holy sh! So Preston's like, oh my god, I don't have enough money for this party. Why do these people just like give me $1 million party? So Preston is just so upset, and he's just like, oh my god, like, I guess I just can't live this $1 million lifestyle forever. As all of a sudden, we have Fred who comes into Mr. McIntosh's office and is talking technically to Mr. McIntosh, even though it's actually Preston. So Fred is going on saying like, well, Mr. McIntosh, like I know that you have this lavish birthday party, but Preston is my son and he's also too to have a birthday. And like I just want to just like to be with my son on his birthday, because I realize that there is to be so um, very few days left that I'm to spend any real legitimate time with him before he becomes an adult and this and that. And also Fred is to just feel awful that he is probably so much more so drilled into his son's head that like, hey man, get a job, get a career, get a this, grow up, this and that. So Preston realizes like how much his father really cares about him, and to really just kind of out of all this, like, hey, like, kid, don't grow up too soon, don't grow up too quickly, have some fun in your life. So Preston runs to just want to get back to his dad, realizing that all of this is going to be a horrible, like, hey, dad, yeah, I spent $1 million on this party that I don't have. What do I do, dad? I need your expertise on this. Run away. But instead, Preston is to meet up with Shay, and so Shay is like, okay, we need this Macintosh guy now. Like, we need him. So Preston has to come clean to everybody, telling everyone that Macintosh had run away, that he's no longer here. So Preston even turns around, goes to the party, and is to tell everybody through this microphone. It's telling them, it's like, well, hey, this guy, he ran away. And they're like, oh my god, like, stop this party right now, because hey, uh, I don't do a party for people who can't pay the bills. So we have Butch and goons who have made their way to figure out where Preston is to hang his hat. So they then there go also and figure out that Preston is to be with Macintosh, and so they head to this mansion. So Preston is to make his way out of this mansion to probably figure out a way to just walk away from this to end up finding that the three goons are there. So we then find Preston trying to, via this water slide, get away from these goons to have Juice follow in his footsteps. So Preston has to figure out a way to outsmart these goons now in a very Home Alone like fashion. So Bitterman ends up coming in to this video game room, and Preston ends up putting this headset, this VR headset, on this guy's head, and like he's blinded, and he's all of a sudden seeing all these visuals, and he's just freaked out by him, and he's kind of weird doing a jig bizarrely, and Preston ends up going on to figure out a way to have this guy just so frazzled that he's just kind of forced in this chair, and he's forced in that weird orange chair that looks like a landmine, and uh, and Preston hoists him up. We come to find that Juice is kind of looking around this the outside of this mansion to find his way into this batting cage where Preston is looking on this TV screen and is firing off all of these balls, nailing Juice right in the nuts because it's his wild thing. Please, baby, please don't hit me in the nuts. Don't hit me in these nuts. And then have him fall over. So while the laughing is going on by a guy getting hit in the nuts, Quigley is just like, aha, like I gotcha. So there is to be a hiding go seek thing going on between both Quigley and Preston, where we have Quigley who's tossing all these tables, trying to figure out where Preston is, as if this is almost quasi like the Ghostbusters movie, where they're taking the sheets and they're flinging them like, and the flowers are still standing. So Quigley is going on and talking to Preston. So all of a sudden, Preston is to come out of the shadows with these boxing gloves and uh, hits Quigley. Quigley ends up falling into this weird, almost American Gladiators sphere apparatus that is to be a large sized ball of which that this person is to be inside of in. That is to even be a phrase of which that I can say here. And so this guy is locked within this metal ball that he's stuck in, and Preston then goes on with this race car to then race behind said ball to continue to have this ball kind of rotate over and over and over. So Quigley ends up landing with inside this pool. We're almost thinking that he's dead as Preston is to grab the Quigley body. And Quigley is kind of playing possum here and is going to get to the kid and like, we got you. And that's where all the other goons kind of line up and they're like, yeah, we're here and we're finally going to give you your comeuppance. But then all of a sudden, all the federales show up and they're just like, freeze, freeze, goon, freeze, whoever, freeze, Quigley and company. So Shay goes on to tell Bitterman, it's like, well, yeah, like if you're gonna tell me I'm out of a job, so are you. You're out of a bank. You're going to jail, buddy, for all kinds of stuff. And then also they're like, well, who at the end of all this, who was Macintosh? And Quigley ends up just stating, it's like, you know what, I'm Macintosh. Because at some point earlier on, there was a possible, like, the guys coming together and like, well, hey, like, what if you could be Macintosh? It's like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like, I could be Macintosh. Macintosh could run for mayor and win it. But so after all of this, all the cops and all the people arrested, we have Fred who's coming back in. It's like, oh my god, like I gotta check in on my son. I gotta see if he's okay. I gotta see if he's dead or not. So Shay ends up talking to Preston, and that's where we get to like, well, yeah, like we can be back together again within 5 to 6 years. And just like they're just kind of talking about the kind of whole like finishing uppings of this whole story here. So as Fred and Preston reunite here, Fred is going on and saying like, "Oh my god, my son's in shock." It's like, "No, I'm fine, Dad. I'm fine." And they just kind of hug it out. Like Preston just needed time to think after that sweet, delicious kiss. So Preston thought that at some point Henry had left, but Henry legitimately did leave just to come back so he can bring some deep dish action pizza. And Henry's like, "Well, aren't you gonna eat this ice cream?" It's like, "No, no." So the very tail end of it is both Fred and Preston making their way back home to come to find out that the family has made Preston a birthday cake and are singing him happy birthday. And it's like, well, hey, like, blow out your candles. What are you going to wish for? And Preston is just like, well, like I don't know. I'm kind of the man that has everything right now. But then also he's looking at like the picture of Shay and he's like, maybe I can come up with something. So blows out all the candles. It's like, all right, like that's the way that this movie wraps up. I'm gonna try to wrap this up here so I can get out of here. Let me know in the comments below how you felt about Blank. Check if you were to check this movie out. Maybe it is to somehow be your favorite childhood film. Because I think everybody again wants that opportunity, that chance to kind of live vicariously through another person and be able to just kind of think like, man, like I have a mass list of all of these things that I want to go on and purchase in my life with having this kind of money. Like, even if it's not like $1 million, like, uh, logically, like any rash number of money um, would logically just be like, man, uh, like this was really a beneficial thing more so than just like getting like a large sum of money. Like, no, like anything is to be that's all, folks. To just be good enough. But anyways, I think it's about that time to say it's time to get out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.